We're going to discuss Butterfly Goo by Rachel Burr, exploring the mess yet transformative process of personal growth through the lens of our hero, Rachel's journey. Rachel's going to use humor and vulnerability. And in this book, there was wonderful, deep insights as she shared her story and just how she navigates through life. Career shifts, relationship changes, self discovery. We all go through it, but this is how it feels, right? Um, the book really embraces that transformation is not linear or tidy, but an essential part of our authentic, becoming our authentic selves. So, my name is Paula Mattisonsierra. I'm the host of 10 at 10 and the founder of Power Marketing SF. And this morning, I have with me Rachel Burr, author of Butterfly Goo and leadership coach. Welcome to the show, Rachel. How are you?
I'm great, Paula. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm just like, I'm so excited about this book. I did not know that you'd been thinking about this for like a while. But I know that you'd been thinking about writing a book for a while,
hmm
but in this format, when did that happen?
That happened about a year ago, last September. So we're at about a year and a half.
But wow. And actually, I remember once you said it to me, it was almost like the idea clicked and you just took off, like you stormed the castle. Like,
Absolutely. It's funny, and I talk about this in the book that a lot of times we feel this aha moment, this inspiration, and we think it comes out of nowhere. And really, it's been all these little, what I call clicks, as in a combination lock, that little things have been happening that have led you to this eureka moment. And when it finally happens, it just gets unleashed.
oh, man, it's like I could tell that you just kind of took off. You like you had a lot of fun with this. But let me ask, okay, so how did Joseph Campbell's framework influence the structure for Butterfly Goo? Which, by the way, I love the title. I love the title. And guys, by the way, when you get a chance to see the book cover, it's just a beautiful book cover. But how did this framework influence how you process through the book?
I think for me, I always knew it was a journey. I'm not really yes, it's a destination. Yes, you're going somewhere, but it is this process of growth. And Joseph Campbell, to be fair, it's a little tongue in cheek. And I talk about how neat and tidy he presents his work or how neat and tidy it shows up in movies. And it is a mess. And so part of it is I take these pieces and yes, I apply them. And yes, I kind of talk about where maybe I misunderstood him, but maybe it's messier than what he portrays, and that's okay.
Wait a second. Also share with our viewers, like, who is Joseph Campbell?
He is a philosopher, writer. He has been responsible for this idea of the hero's journey, that there is this arc of our stories, whether it is Star Wars, Lion King, Lord of the Rings, any of it, and that there is this arc that can be found throughout history, whether it's Grimm's fairy tales and Greek mythology, etc. That there is this process of discovery, hearing the call, ignoring the call, going on these trials and tribulations and self-discovery and overcoming uh, monsters and the things that really are getting in our way.
Those things that go supposedly bump in the night,
Bump
right?
in the night or bump right in front of you during the day.
I know, right? Trips you over, you're coming along, having a great day, and you're out, you know?
Yes.
You describe your transformation, though, as sticky and goofy. Still makes me laugh. Exactly how would you say that applies to business owners?
I think, transformation it's a human thing. So it's personal transformation, it's business transformation, it's leadership, it's all of it. And I think we look at this myth that transformation is this beautiful thing. And that's why I like to use the butterfly. That the butterfly is beautiful, but that beauty distracts us from the arduous nature of transformation. And in business, especially as maybe an entrepreneur, it's it can really be a struggle. And we look at other people and think, wow, they did it. It looks so easy. And we all know it's not. And it's important to know that it's not so that we understand that it is achievable. it is actionable, and it's not supposed to be perfect. So we can do it.
You mean it's what do you mean it's not supposed to be perfect? We just had a giggle about perfectionism, by the way. As I'm making fun of someone else's perfectionism, I realized that I was doing the same thing as well. Um, what was that moment like for you, by the way, breaking through like your terror barrier when you left that old path to get onto a new path? What was that like for you?
Oh, there's so many paths that I've gotten off on. I've gotten on to new paths for work. Um, I went from a corporate job working with people I really enjoyed, but something just wasn't right. And I have
Mm,
a, kind of a double-edged sword. I'm a very loyal person, and I'm very committed, and sometimes I take that too far.
mm,
And I needed some big things to really break for me to be able to see that this was not my path and to be able to let go. So it was painful, and it was just the way I describe it in the book, which was another journey. And I got to that point where I'm like, oh, yeah, I've been here before. This is where the journey begins.
yeah. Yeah, so many of us stay out of loyalty, not realizing that the person that you need to be the most loyal to is like is yourself, you know? And then, this is what I realized, by the way. Every time you make that decision and you feel that like, like everything may fall apart, I don't know how they're going to respond. They usually respond typically. I mean, I'm sure there are other responses as well by saying, okay, that makes sense. Like I'm gonna really hate that you're leaving, but you know what I mean? So it's never
Absolutely.
the big blow up is never exactly what you think it is. I mean, we've seen and we've heard of that one or two, but more than normal, most people are reasonable and rational. How can these setbacks and changes and failures become like valuable tool as again, we target business owners, that's
Yeah.
who's listening here, but how can failure educate?
We learn from so many things that we do. We learn from when we succeed. I believe we learn even more when I'm not going to say fail, I'm going to say fall. There's the quote that we only fail when we don't get back up. And I think it's really important to be able to reflect, because sometimes we do stay in the goo, and that's okay. You get to sit there for a little bit. You get to not be happy about it. And then how do we step back and take, that after action review, as they call it, and say, okay, what happened? What went well? What didn't go well? How do I learn from that? Because it's not making the mistakes that's the problem, or that's the thing that stops us. It's making the same mistakes over and over because we fail to learn from them.
Mm. Do you think all failure is instructive?
That's a great question. Um, well, I'm assuming if failure is deadly, then probably not. That's true. I think it there's an interesting quote, that which does not kill us makes us stronger.
Mhm.
And in the book, I point out that that does not make us stronger. We choose to become stronger. When something doesn't kill us, we choose to grow. If we do not choose that path, then there is no learning.
Mm, mm. So how do you find basically your guide, your swami through this? Because you mentioned the importance of guidance, right? How can business leaders cultivate that? How can they put that into action for themselves? Because it's hard to ask for help, you know?
Oh, it's really hard. It's
Yeah,
really hard to ask for help,
because
especially.
you're being vulnerable, you know what I mean? And when you're the leader, you're kind of the it person at the top. How do you ask for help?
Absolutely. Well, a couple of things. It's really funny because in Joseph Campbell's version, the mentor appears essentially when the student is ready. That
Mm,
wasn't my experience. My experience was, hey, where is this mentor? I could use some help. I was more than happy to ask for it. I just couldn't find it. And I think in business, one of the challenges is understanding what is it I need, because no individual mentor is going to be able to be everything to you any more than any relationship is going to be everything to you, even your spouse or your partner. So I think, first of all, getting clear on what is it I need to know? What am I trying to learn? And you may not know exactly what that is,
Mhm.
but then it's like, okay, based on that, how do I find someone that can provide that expertise? And it may not be where you think it's going to be. You know, a lot of times we look to the leaders above us. We look to people with title that are, you know, supposedly experts. But there's a lot of leadership that happens without title. There's a lot of wisdom around us. And sometimes that wisdom is even in what they call reverse mentoring, which I
Mm.
would still call mentoring, which is when you look at someone that maybe is younger than you or in a position that's, you know, not as considered as high in the organization. I like to think about, you know, everyone has something to teach and everyone has something to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I always love the mindset, and I feel like I hear this on YouTube a lot, which is no one's coming. No one, no one's coming. What do you do now? Do do you lay there like the delicate fawn and wait to be rescued? I mean, because to me, there's some fantastic people like right around us, like
Yeah.
networking, books, people sharing their experience, like this is what I went through. Don't
Yeah.
do this. These are some ways that you can solve it. These
Hmm.
are some resources. So I think oftentimes we think mentors like you have to actually choose a person. It's structured, you meet with each other every week, and it's not always that pretty. Sometimes you're going to have to will yourself, like crawl out of the hole. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, like if you can't crawl first, then get up and walk, then run. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you're gonna have to do that, but I find that unlike the 1700s, 1500s, where books weren't accessible, you can literally in any neighborhood, any economic standard, any place, walk in and pick up a book and get the wisdom from, Marcus Aurelius, George Washington, you can get, a Michael Gerber, um, so on and so on, so you can read the Bible if you want. I don't know what's the thing, but I think oftentimes people think that mentorship has to be this big thing, but sometimes you can literally see someone you admire and just go up to them and ask. Uh,
Absolutely. In small chunks. And the one thing I will say that's interesting, because when you're talking about, I think there's so much wisdom in books or in people, and they talk about, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles. We still have to take the step. So if we're expecting the mentor to impart this, if we're expecting a book to do this for us, it's not. We still have to take ownership of what that information is. Someone else can give us their best, but if we don't own it and we don't take action on it, it won't make a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You kind of dived into emotional intelligence in your book. First of all, because I always look whenever there's someone on who kind of broaches subject, I always like to hear folks' definition.
Mm.
How do they translate it, first of all? But what in your mind is emotional intelligence? And how did emotional intelligence and mindfulness help you through the transformation?
I think, well, first, the way I would describe it is it's about awareness and management. It's awareness of self and managing self. It's awareness of your relationship and interactions with others and managing how you show up with other people. And through the book, there's both awareness and there's a severe lack of awareness at times where I realized that, ooh, I got caught up. And if we don't manage our emotions, they manage us.
Mm,
So it's, and I love some of the kind of how we look at what it means to manage our emotions. There's a difference between having that initial reaction and feeling something very strongly
mm,
and taking action on it. There's a gap in between that. And that's the difference. You get to feel how you're going to feel. Now, through meditation or through practice, that emotional reaction may not be as strong. You may be able to head it off at the pass. But the real piece is what's that gap? How do I choose to respond? And I love that Viktor Frankl quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but something about the fact that, you know, other people may take a lot from us. They may take almost everything from us, but they cannot take how we choose, or our choice in terms of how we choose to respond to what
Mm,
happens. And for me, emotional intelligence sits in that gap. So it's an awareness of how we're feeling and what we're feeling, and how we're showing up, both in terms of how we talk to ourselves. I talk about gremlins a lot in the book, or the inner critic, however you want to talk about it, and how we show up with others. And those two things are very much related. That, what we're telling ourselves, and that means how we're showing up as a result of it, that can be very powerful. And sometimes we don't recognize what we're doing to ourselves that's detrimental.
no, absolutely. I think also seeing the reality of what's happening in front of you. Like, don't translate it. See what's happening in front of you, actually happening. Don't, translate it based on your past experiences. Um, if it happened to you, it must be happening to every other person in the world. Maybe just sit in it and see what you see and understand it as well. Um, you did a little portion of like creativity popped up to me a lot. How can a business owner apply creativity, creative thinking to solve problem solve and to drive innovation and make changes?
Well, I think what you said earlier is important. We've been there, we've done that. We assume everybody else has had our experience. And for me, a couple of things show up. One is getting out of the known, which I talk about in the book. You go from your known to your unknown, and
Mm-hmm.
putting yourself in situations that may cause you to think differently. Step out of that comfort zone. So, and you may know where the boundaries of your comfort zone are, you may not. But putting yourself in situations, so, okay, this is kind of funny. I randomly choose things sometimes that are just different. Now, some of it's travel, and that's not accessible to everybody. Some of it is just showing up in a new place. And I, I wanted to do this, and so I dragged my husband to have a new cultural experience. And so I took him to a tattoo expo. Now, I do not have tattoos. My brother's big into that, but I think they're beautiful. But I've never really experienced kind of an immersion in something like that. And we were walking, by the stands, and it was beautiful. There were artists actually creating tattoos. There was, um, you know, clothing, other things that go with it. And my husband kept bumping into me. And I'm like, I finally stopped. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I realized he was super uncomfortable. So I had pulled him way outside his comfort zone. And every once in a while, I see the sign for the tattoo expo again, and I said, "Oh, look, it's coming." He's like, "Yep, good,
Yeah,
have
that's
fun."
nice. Wonderful. Thank you for pointing that out to me.
So, our comfort zones, they're all different. You got to
Exactly.
find yours, but innovation, I really truly believe, how do you get out of the known and get into your unknown? And maybe there are people out there that do think differently than you. I mean, I know there are. So how do you engage them, or how do you enlist their help to maybe pull you out of that comfort zone, or give you a different perspective than how you see things now?
Mm. Oh,
Oops.
that's like totally well said. I know. It's like, well, Rachel is frozen. Hopefully she'll pop back in. Wi-Fi is a real thing. Um, I guess we'll wait for a little bit. Rachel, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can tell that your photo's frozen, but I can hear your voice. If you
Hmm.
pop out, just pop right back in. Until that happens, what advice would you give someone who feels that they're stuck at the abyss? They're like right there. They feel very alone. Um, what advice would you give to them?
Well, right at this important question, I don't want to mess with my camera. So I think, one, recognizing that the abyss is going to be there, that a lot of times we're avoiding that thing that scares us the most. And by avoiding it, we're actually creating more pain for ourselves. We have to face the monsters that are in the abyss in order to get past them. And spoiler alert, those are usually in ourselves. They're usually in terms of how we struggle with things, how we see the world. They're the things that scare us internally. And, a lot of the stories that use Campbell's journey, we look at the external monsters, and certainly they're there, but really the hero or heroine is struggling with something inside themselves.
Mm, I know, and it's usually it remind what you said just remind me of a great phrase, which is uh, don't ever point out the mirror, the window, point into the mirror. You
Yeah.
know, if there's a problem happening, don't look out the window, look in the mirror. You know, it's a more of a mirror problem than anything else, a perception problem. I don't know if you're still here with me, Rachel, but and Rachel is going to be back in a second. But one of the things that we had discussed, and Rachel's right back,
I am back.
and she's popping right back in. There you go.
See, that's part of the goo. You just got to go with the
You
flow.
gotta
Things
go with it,
happen.
people. And by the way, and that's why I like to do a live show, you know, because things are, I have to say, for me, the imperfection was COVID, and it
Mhm.
reminded me that things can change on a dime. Why not do a live show? Most people want to look perfect, have the
Yeah.
makeup, the sound, and I'm like, I like my imperfections.
Yes.
Let's
There
do
is so
that.
much power in imperfection. And it is, that's the whole thing about going through the goo, recognizing that this is not, if we're waiting for perfection, then we're just going to stay stuck. It doesn't exist and it holds us back.
Uh, and that literally is that wall, isn't it? That's the
Hmm.
wall
That we
that
create
that
around
we
ourselves.
create. We're like actively building it.
We act like, yes, one brick at a time, or just throwing up the wall like a drawbridge,
It's like,
pulling it
don't do
up to our
it.
castle. Yeah.
Don't do it, you know? You spoke often of this, basically this giver's gain, you know, and this really makes me excited because I'm trying to be better at not sharing, by the way. So it was funny going through that section where you spoke about the importance of returning to share what you've learned, offer
Mhm.
it to others, mentor your underlings, offer it to referral partners, what have you.
Yeah.
And I just say I'm on the opposite end because I've gotten so excited by how much I've learned since 2017. I've just thrown myself off the abyss, basically. And I'm like, I can't believe that this is happening. I need to tell people about it. But you know what I realize is when people are in the matrix, they might not be willing to listen and they don't want anything that goes against what they're comfortable with. How do you feel about that comment alongside your no, you got to share the gift?
Well, you have to. It's empowering to share the gift, and some people may not be ready to hear it.
Yeah.
They may not resonate with your particular voice. That's one of the things that
Mm,
people say. Oh, I want to write a book, but what could I say that hasn't been said?
mm,
Probably nothing. I mean, the wisdom of the ages, but our voice, my voice, your voice, it's different. It may resonate with people that didn't resonate with the same message before. They may be ready to hear it and they weren't ready before. So us giving the gift, it's important. In my case, in this journey, it was the realization, it was the learning, it was understanding this messiness and being able to help make it more accessible to others. Other people may be in that place of being comfortable in their discomfort. We talk about it, they're not ready to push out.
yeah.
That's their journey, and that's okay. That's not for us to own. Us, we're offering the gift. Other people have to accept it or not.
So, question, is a gift for others or is it really for yourself?
Yes.
So what's next? Because this was a beautiful book, and it's a I thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I'm really such a strong believer in books. It's why reinvent the wheel. There's so many experiences out there, so many givers that have offered this is a life, this is how you change it, this is how you do this,
Yeah.
or just simply stories to affect you. um, so I really want to thank you for writing this book. And like I said, once you told me you were doing it, you were like off like a lightning. It was like blink, like what happened? You know, what's next for Butterfly Goo? What's the big plans?
It's funny, people are saying, "Oh, now that the book is written, now you have all this free time." And it's like, no, this is the
No.
next phase of really, getting it out there. So, talking to people about it and, speaking to groups, helping it be more accessible. So many times people say if you have, you write a book and it sits on a shelf, it's not going to create its own awareness. You have to actively, it's not only just giving the gift of the book, it's giving and re-giving and making sure people know that it's out there. So that's really the plan, doing speaking, connecting with people later down the road, doing some workshops, something like that. So continuing to get the word out there so people actually get to hear it and decide if it's something they want to take on their own journey.
Well, and how will our viewers get in touch or maybe purchase the book as well? Our PV people out there, our BNI people out there, other business owners, how will they be able to get this book?
So the website is butterflygoobook.net. You can go on there and it has links to either Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can also look at probably a number of your booksellers just online to find it, Butterfly Goo Book. And you should be able to access it in ebook, paperback, and hardcover, depending on what your preference is and how you like to consume your books and information.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that again, because having you on the show perfectly worked into the mission statement of the show. So the show's been going strong since 2015. Yeah, I forgot my own day. Don't judge. Don't send notes. I don't need to hear the comments, guys. Since around 2015, from Facebook first, then to LinkedIn. Our mission statement is really, I started up, I'm a marketer, but I realized that marketing doesn't work if the operational side doesn't work. That also includes a business owner. So it's the personal and the professional things, all of these things together as a group that helps the business owner move forward. And so, of course, I introduce you to what I call everyday experts to share their expertise, their experience to help up level you on the personal and professional basis. We air every Thursday at 10 a.m. We're back. We're live on LinkedIn right now. And I just want to share just a little insight from Rachel's book, that it's my own little quote that I came up with out of the book, which is success is not about perfection. It's about learning to thrive in the mess. Growth happens when you embrace the process, not just the outcome. So you got to go through it, guys, to grow through it, right? Thank you to our viewers today. I know a lot of you are going to catch us on the replay. Thank you for last week as well. My guest today, Rachel Burr. Thank you. Um, Everyone, you guys just continue to amaze me. I just love being around awesome people. Stay strong, keep moving forward. A lot of weird is happening right now, but embrace the weird. Our guest next week's going to be Donnie Porto. Donnie is a sales expert from Sales Accelerator, so that should be interesting of how the mindset plays against you. Same thing. It's funny that all of these topics really kind of roll together. Even your topic really relates on the sales end. How oftentimes business owners won't run their businesses because of that fear, of perfection. But thank you so much, Rachel, for being on the show today. Thank you to the viewers out there. And as always, keep moving forward. Take care, everyone. Bye. And we're out.